Hello, my name is Fergus and I'm the author of Cathal Brua, published by UCD Press in the Life and Times series in 2018. Cathal Brua was involved in many of the major events of the Irish Revolution. He fought in the 1916 Rising, where he was almost killed. He was the Minister of Defence during the War of Independence. He took an anti-treaty position on the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and he was shot dead during the Civil War in the summer of 1922 in Dublin. Despite his importance, relatively little has been written about Cathal Brua. There were two Irish language biographies which appeared, one in the 1940s and another in the 1960s. But my book, published by UCD Press, is the first English language biography of Cathal Brua. What I've tried to do in the book is to go back over newly available sources from the Bureau of Military History predominantly, but other places as well, and try to build a picture of Cathal Brua, the revolutionary. My book has taken a different view of the typical portrait of Brua, which is presented in the historiography. In the introduction of my book, I write that typically Brua is being presented as honest, ignorant, stubborn, brave, devout, fastidious, and cantankerous. He is viewed as a soldier, moulded in the physical force tradition. He is cast as a resolutely committed Republican who was uninterested in politics and unconvinced of its effectiveness. My book has argued that Brua sought to use violence and politics to achieve his ultimate aim of Irish independence. The piece I will read now is from the early months of 1922. The treaty has been signed, the Free State has been set up, anti-treaty forces are opposed to that treaty, and there is internal politics going. The piece I'll read now is from the early months of 1922. Just to give you a bit of context, it deals with the internal politics of the anti-treaty Republican side. Brua has been often portrayed as a hardline physical force Irish Republican. However, as this passage hopefully demonstrates, he was in fact, his position was a little bit more nuanced than that. Shorn of government authority, anti-treaty politicians like Brua and De Valera were becoming increasingly irrelevant, losing out to hardline militarist Republicans. In an attempt to reassert himself, De Valera founded Cumann na Poblacht in March, with him at its head and Brua as vice president. But the IRA remained the decisive power bloc. On the 22nd of March, at a press conference held in the offices of De Valera's new political party, Rory O'Connor boasted that he had not even read the treaty and claimed that there are times when revolution was justified and the army had overthrown the government in many countries that way. When asked if he supported a military dictatorship, he replied, "You can see it that way if you like." The IRA convention of the 26th of March formalised the military split. A majority of Republican delegates asserted that the IRA was now independent of the Dáil. A 16-man executive was elected, with Liam Lynch as chief of staff. Brua, seen as a politician, was not on the executive. A second convention was held on 9th of April. It was proposed that the forthcoming election, in which the treaty was the main issue, should be boycotted. Brua was opposed to this, as was Liam Lynch, believing that the people had the right to decide for themselves if they accepted the treaty. Fractions were beginning to emerge within the anti-treaty side. Lynch sought to find common ground with the provisional government, and De Valera was in talks with Collins about an election pact which might avoid making matters even worse. The more hardline Republicans, such as O'Connor and Liam Mellows, seemed intent on military action. On the 14th of April, they and their followers occupied several buildings in Dublin city centre and established their HQ in the forecourts. According to the anti-treaty leader, Liam Deasy, it appeared as if a number of independent armies were being formed on the anti-treaty side. Such well-known Republicans as Rory O'Connor, Seamus Robinson and Liam Mellows could see no good in Michael Collins, Dick Mulcahy and Eoin O'Duffy. This distrust even extended to Liam Lynch, Florrie O'Donoghue, Frank Barrett and myself. We were regarded as being well-intentioned but failing to maintain our stand to the Republic. Lynch, leader of the moderate wing, was excluded from the forecourts along with his supporters. Brua was very much on this moderate wing, but was powerless to arrest the descent into civil war. He was distrusted by O'Connor and Mellows because of his association with politics, which is ironic given his later portrayal as a hardline militant Republican. So Brugha and De Valera became increasingly irrelevant as they were out, in the spring of 1922, as they were outflanked by more hardline militant Republicans such as Rory O'Connor. I've tried to present this in the book and show that Brugha's position on politics and war, particularly in this period, is more nuanced than just a one-dimensional gun-toting Republican as he's sometimes viewed. Brugha is also well known for his fallout with Michael Collins. The two men clashed over personality, power and politics. Collins was a central figure in the IRB, whereas Brugha distrusted the IRB. He left the organisation in the aftermath of the 1916 Rising. Brugha was Minister of Defence, so he also clashed with Collins when Collins would send out men from the squad on assassination attempts, whereas Brugha felt it was his remit to sanction these actions. They were also from different backgrounds. Brugha was a devout Catholic. He didn't like drinking or smoking. He was from the city and he was far older than older than Collins. Collins was younger, he was from the countryside, and he liked carousing. The section I'll read to you now is where Brugha is shot dead in the summer of 1922. I'll read about his last stand here in the Hammer Hotel, and then Michael Collins' reaction to his death. The assassination of Sir Henry Wilson on the 22nd of June, the military advisor to the Northern Irish government, brought an ultimatum from London that forced the hand of the provisional government. On the 28th of June, Free State forces began shelling the forecourts. Anti-treaty leaders, including De Valera and Brugha, met at the Clarence Hotel on the same day and unanimously decided on armed action. They moved behind the anti-treaty barricades to take up arms against their former comrades. Brugha reported as a private in the Dublin Brigade, his old unit during the Rising. Within 2 days, the forecourts had been captured, along with Mellows and O'Connor. The Dublin Brigade, led by Oscar Traynor, held out in the area around O'Connell Street, along with Brugha, De Valera and Ernie O'Malley. Their plan was to keep the Free State Army engaged for as long as possible to give the IRA time to slip into the countryside where they had more support. Brugha commanded the IRA rearguard, supported by some members of Cumann, allowing De Valera and others to escape. According to O'Malley, the girls refused to leave. They wanted to be treated as equals with the men, and the question was debated with heat in rooms of burning buildings, under the noise of shells and the spatter of machine gun fire. Cathal Brugha had to exert his personal influence to make them go. His personal influence notwithstanding, 3 remained. The war raged in the North Inner City for a week. The buildings around O'Connell Street had been reduced to burning edifices from the Free State bombardment. Emmett Dalton, the Free State commander, sent a message into Brugha asking him to surrender. Brugha's handwritten reply was sent back in Irish. When Dalton had it translated, he realised it read, "Not damned likely." By July 5th, the building was no longer tenable. Brugha called his small force together and ordered them to give themselves up. As they walked out and handed themselves over to the Free State soldiers, Brugha emerged into a side lane. There are varying accounts as to the sequence of events and debate over who fired first. Some depict Brugha as heroic and selfless, others as crazed and vengeful, but they all end the same way. He was shot by the Free State soldiers and fell to the ground, with blood pouring from his leg. He had carried British shrapnel inside him since the Rising. Added to this now were bullets fired by Irish men. Linda Kearns, a nurse who had stayed inside the burning hotel until the last stand, held his severed artery between her fingers while he was driven away. Unconscious in the Mater Hospital, he remained characteristically defiant and obstinate, refusing to die, but lingering for 2 days, until the end came on the 7th of July. He was 47 years old, survived by his wife and 6 children. This note was found in his pocket. Why, if our last cartridge had been fired, if our last shilling had been spent, and if our last man was lying wounded on the ground, and his English enemies howling round him with their bayonets raised, ready to plunge them into his broken body, and if they asked, "Now, will you come into our empire?" True to the tradition that has been handed down to him, his answer would be, no, I will not. Brua's death marked the end of the Civil War in Dublin. Upon hearing of his demise, Michael Collins wrote to a friend, "Many would not have forgiven, had they been in my place, Cathal Brua's attack on me on January 7th during the treaty debates. Yet I would forgive him anything. Because of his sincerity, I would forgive him anything. At worst, he was a fanatic, though in what has been a noble cause. At best, I number him among the very few who have given their all that this country, now torn by civil war, should have its freedom. When many of us are forgotten, Cathal Brua will be remembered." It's perhaps an ironic line to finish with. When many of us are forgotten, Cathal Brua will be remembered. There are many biographies of Collins, many biographies of De Valera, biography of Emmett Dalton, Harry Boland, many figures involved in the Irish Revolution. But it's taken it took almost a century for an English language biography of Cathal Brua to be published. Thank you very much.